Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster series. Although it is rapidly becoming the Road to FIDE Master. Maybe I should regain the International Master title first. It's been a rough couple of tournaments here on this series, and I'm currently playing through another one in New York City. Maybe I just got to stop playing in New York City. That might just really be the solution. Just got to play in warm destinations like Spain, Italy, although I did have a good tournament in New York. I've got half out of 3 in this tournament so far. This is the 4th round recap. But for this round, GM level Levy almost fully returned. So I'm very excited to share this game with you. And friendly reminder, you can watch along these games. They're live on Chessly, and you can play Guess the Move. And also, if you don't want to watch live, but you want to learn from every one of these games, you can. Because on Chessly, we added a special course, which gives you double XP, so limited time. I just hit my microphone, I'm so excited. And that special course expires at the end of this tournament, so try it or it'll be gone. Now, on that note, in this round, I was playing against Josiah Stearman. If you don't know who Josiah Stearman is, that's okay. Josiah is an international master. He is what they call a GM elect. He has been elected to get the Grandmaster title, kind of like a president. On a serious note, he got 3 GM norms. So Josiah has all 3 of the required norms. The only thing that he needs is the rating, and he didn't get the rating. Like, I think his highest rating, I don't know if it was 2470, 80, 90, but since his peak, he's lost like 60 points or something, which is annoying because I have to play him and he's like GM level. But I was like, I'm excited. Like, my tournament is crap, but here we go, D4. And what Josiah's been playing recently is a lot of King's Indian defense. So I decided before this game, like, I'm already kind of on tilt. Let's just play a Trumpowski. This is the opening that buttered my bread for many, many years. It's a fantastic opening. Josiah played here, and now white can play e3, knight e2. In the Chessly course, I recommend bishop takes f6, but I was expecting Josiah to take with the g-pawn and look for immediate imbalance, and so I went knight e2, and I was ready for him to play c5, and I was going to play e3 and c3 and get a game. But he went here, which is funny, because I had a game in Spain against Lelis, Grandmaster from Cuba, who did the exact same thing. And basically, black wants to play e5 in one go. In that game in Spain, I allowed him to play e5, although I actually think he went e6 and then e5. And so I played knight gf3, which stops e5. And I was sort of expecting Josiah to, like, either choose at this point to play the game solidly or provoke. And he played h6, which was a very provocative move. Had I gone to h4, he probably would have continued with g5 and something like bishop g7, and we would have had a very imbalanced game. But what's interesting about the position is that I went bishop f4, and now it's like we have a London, except I wasted 2 moves getting to a London, but for some reason he played this and this. So imagine d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, knight d2 for some reason, h6 for some reason, knight f3, knight d7, and now black gets another move. So it's not white's move, it's black's move. Like, we just skip white's turn completely, and it is black's move. That's basically the game. It's and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And, you know, if Josiah plays G5, okay, whatever. I'll go here. And the other thing I was doing was provoking him into playing that h5. And what's interesting, he spent 7 minutes. And my approach for the game, for this game, and honestly for the rest of the games in this tournament, is like, just play fast. Trust your intuition. Stop stalling, stop thinking. I mean, think, but not too much. And just trust yourself. So I was fully expecting this. By the way, it's the second time in this tournament somebody has chased my bishop on f4 with this knight. My original thought was, I'm going to play e3. That was my first thought. e3, knight f4, pawn f4. He would play e6. I'll play something like this. He would go here. I'll play g3. And, you know, it's a normal game. Like, I have a kind of a structure like this, and I control e5. But then I was like, wait a minute. Just from an intuition standpoint, he wants my bishop. Why would I give him my bishop and give him damage structure to work with. The move that kind of was like silly here looking like was bishop e5. It's kind of like an absurd move. But what's funny is that, like, I mean, he has to take me. Otherwise, this whole plan doesn't make any sense. And what's interesting about this trade, right? Like, you just think about knights are worse than bishops. Bishops are better than knights. Don't give away a bishop for a knight unless you have a good reason. Well, the good reason here is that the knight is not in a good spot. It's going to be targeted immediately. And what I want here is I want the stonewall pawn structure. So knight f6, which is what he played in the game. And now I was just going to go e3. And I was just going to play, like, if he went here, I was going to go here. And if he went here, I was going to play f4. And if he castled, I would go here. And basically, this is a really bad structure for black. Like, this is a stonewall gone completely right, because I don't have a bad bishop anymore. The stonewall is a fantastic opening. I mean, it's like structure-wise. It's you get space, you control the center, and you know, if he plays it really slowly, I just go g4 and like h4 and I checkmate him. Like, this is a very common attacking mechanism for those of you that play Trumpowski or London, or play neither of these things, or play the Stonewall Dutch with the black pieces, which is on Chessly. All these amazing openings, if you ever wanted to learn any. So when I went e3, I was like, well, this is great. I'm just going to play c3, bishop d3, etc. The only thing is, can Josiah play bishop f5? And he did. But notice how much time he's spending on every move. Like, he spent 9 minutes on this move, then he spent another 9 minutes. I have a 30-minute time advantage, which is actually a really big deal because Josiah plays really fast. Like, every time I look at Josiah's games, he's got a good grasp of the opening, and he also is up on time. Here, he doesn't have a good grasp of the opening, and he's down 30 minutes. I'm not insulting him, like, compared to what could have happened, you know, and I was like, well, again, opening was a massive success. Like, this is exactly what I want. And now I was thinking, okay, I have a few ideas here. First idea is bishop d3. And there's a common concept here, which is c takes d3. So you damage your own pawn structure, but you completely control the center. The queen is open. The rook goes to the open file. And I like this. One thing that I wouldn't really consider is leaving the center. Like, I didn't really think about that. Maybe I could have, and then I guess I can set this up. The computer really likes this approach, and the computer really likes the approach where I do this and then play c4. And it actually thinks with the double knight setup, white is better. It actually thinks that white has a slight advantage, and then it wants to play rook b1, b4, a4. It just wants to start a queenside attack. I mean, maybe. I mean, obviously, it's just equal at the end of the day, but I didn't really think about that, to be honest. Like, I didn't think about leaving, but it's a fascinating, like, lesson. I never saw that in my life. I only have ever really thought about c takes d3. The other thing I wanted to do here was to play c4, obviously, because the bishop left, and then queen b3. But he just plays e6, and then if I play queen b3, he can play rook b8 or queen c8. I didn't really see a way through. I was also contemplating, like, maybe he can just gambit the pawn, but obviously he doesn't have to do that. Rook b8. If queen a4 check, here, he can't really, this doesn't work because of this. I cannot get caught with my pants down because I would get removed from the tournament for indecent exposure. But also metaphorically, I cannot get caught with my pants down. So yeah, I looked at this, but I didn't really understand where I was getting. The computer likes this, and then like c5, which is, yeah, like, I don't know. I didn't really think of putting my pawn on c5. And then apparently I can play like queen a4 or queen c3 and b4. It's interesting. I didn't know. At this point, I was calculating for a little while. I ended up playing my move. But again, I made a decision. I'm going to play fast. Why am I going to play fast? Obviously, my calculation in this tournament has not worked. So I'm spending a lot of time. And I'm not making good decisions. So why not play the first moves that come to mind? And that's why after bishop f5, I went g4. I didn't even spend a lot of time on it. 4 minutes. g4. That is an insanely committal decision. And I'm pushing a pawn where my king, you know, is ultimately going to be. But the point is, I shoved the bishop backwards, and now I go for the exact same plan that I wanted to go for, except with the inclusion of the move g4. And I was like, look, if engines have taught me anything, this is much more of an asset than a liability. Now, of course, knight takes d3 wouldn't really make sense now, because the whole point is to go here. Why did I go g4? No, my whole point was I'm going to attack him. Like, if Josiah tries to castle kingside, I'm going to play f4, h4, etc. He went e6. And now I had another big decision. Like, do I play queen b3? Do I play h4? By the way, if any of you are wondering, are you going to castle into the open file? Are you going to castle here? No, to be honest with you, I was ready to put my king in the center. More on that later. Like, these are the kinds of positions I really like. These are creative positions, dynamic positions, imbalance. Like, this is what I live for. So I was trying to play quickly. I played h4, again, 4 minutes. And at this point, also, Josiah sped up. Like, I could tell he wasn't thrilled that the time situation was what it was. And he started kind of trusting his intuition a little bit more. He played e6. And at this point, my original plan had been queen b3, but I realized he can just give the pawn away. Like, I wanted to play queen b3, queen c8, h4, bishop d6, and like knight f3. This is what I had prepared in my mind. But what I had realized was if I play queen b3, brother can just give away the b7 pawn, which is unbelievable. Like, even queen b5 does not matter. Knight e7, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't make a difference. And why? It's because rook b8. Like, and also, on top of that, like, take, knight d7. If I try to protect myself, there's just counterplay straight down the b file. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't work. Let's play h4. That's what I wanted to play anyway. I'm threatening here, bishop d6. And again, originally, my plan here had been to play knight f3. I wanted to go here. But I was like, hey, what if I play knight f3, but first I play f4? And I was so hyped to play this move. It's just such an awesome move. But notice the time situation is getting closer. Josiah is using the experience factor. He's playing faster than me. He's playing moves actually a lot faster now. And I'm still deciding like h4, f4, queen b3. But I was still pretty happy with my position here. And of course, if he castles, he just gets completely destroyed. So I was like, well, he can't castle. I don't really know what he's going to do. He might strike back on the other side of the board. If he does that, I might take. But also I have queen a4 check ideas. But I was expecting his next move, and it was h5. Now, originally, I wanted to go here. His knight has to leave, but first he takes. And then he's going to put his knight on g4. And I looked at this position and was like, to be honest, I'm not really thrilled about the knight on g4. Like, he somehow got past my pawns. And that knight is going to live there forever. It is not going to be easy to get rid of that knight. So I was like, okay, h5, I have to take. I'm going to take it. Computer doesn't love it, but I had an idea. What's funny is the computer wants me to go check, which I saw, c6, then take, and then castle long. And what's interesting about this position is I saw this. I mean, it's equal. I saw this as a possibility. His knight would get in, I would go here, and then he would put his knight on f5. When I saw that his knight could get to f5, I was like, that's not really pleasant, because if I try to do anything, he's got really nasty pressure on my center pawns. So I took, and he took with the knight, and now I could do this. I could play queen a4 and long castle, right? Like, I saw queen a4 check, and I quickly castle, but I wasn't really sure. Like, again, like I said, the knight is still getting to the f5 square. He's going to anchor it with g6. I don't know. I'm just not sure. So on knight takes h5, I thought about queen a4. I thought about maybe rook h3. Thought about a lot of different things. I ultimately settled on queen g4. Again, every move I'm playing in like 4 to 5 minutes. Like, I'm actually doing a good job managing my time. Problem is, Josiah is playing moves instantly now. Like, he's half bluffing. I mean, he's not like, he could have played queen e7, queen f6. He ultimately goes for c5 because my queen left that side of the board. And I took. And here, I played king e2, which I thought was a super gangster move. Like, my king's just like, I don't need to go that way. I don't need to go that way. I'm defending my center pawn cluster. And I was very happy with the position. One move I didn't really, I don't know why I never played this move, but I didn't want to play d4, even though it's, according to the computer, the best move. I didn't want to play this for some reason because I was like, I'm leaving a hole in my position. But that doesn't really make sense because he has the dark squared bishop, right? So like, I probably should have just gone d4. And what the computer likes now is, again, long castle. This would have been smart. This would have been pretty smart. He can give me a check, but it actually doesn't matter. My king is totally happy on b1, and I'm just better here. It's equal, though, if he plays queen f6, and if I play something like king b1, he can ultimately trade the queens. And again, it's that hole. And I was like, do I really like having that hole there? I don't know. I'm not really sure. So I went king e2, and both of us actually missed black's best move here. It looks like black has a fork, But we both thought it doesn't work. Because after f5, it looks like white is winning. Looks like I have queen a4 check, queen b2, queen a4. If this mate, if this fork, and if this mate in 3. So f5 was a really cool idea that I thought I had. And the point of it is, for example, if he plays bishop takes e3, I calculated queen a4, king e7. No. No. If he takes on f5, I have queen a4, king e7, queen d7, king f6, queen f7, king e5, d4, which is pretty sick. If bishop d4, queen e7, and I win. If king d6, I have... Yes, so here I calculated here... I can sack my knight, and I can do this, and I can bring my other rook. This was such a crazy line. When I saw that I had f5, I got really excited. What's funny is we both completely missed. He can take my pawn. It doesn't look possible because of queen a4 check, but now he has b5. So it's a total blind spot. It's basically like the b pawn can't move. And so he can go here, and now queen a4 and here. And he told me after the game, he was like, he was planning to castle, which is an okay move, but obviously it's, you know, and then I have like knight f7. He can go here. He was calculating this stuff. It's crazy. But both of us completely miscalculated here. And he would have, you know, I would have went here and he can try to win a pawn, but I have rook b1, so doesn't really matter. Just very complicated game. He ultimately ends up going queen f6. And I went rook c1, which I could have went rook c1. I could have went rook g1. I thought rook c1 made sense, but also I was pushing his bishop backwards into my knight. So I didn't quite know. And again, time situation, I'm maintaining a 5-6 minute time edge, which I thought was very important. And at this point, I thought Josiah was going to go queen f5, offering a queen trade and a fork and winning the queen back like this. But he played a move which really shocked me. And it was kind of a blind spot. He played d4, which like, I was like, what? Really? It makes sense. And he told me after the game, he kind of thought like, again, this is why maybe I should go d4. But after queen f5, he's almost better. It's the same trick to go to knight g3. And if this structure is just always good for black, or even f6, for example. So it was just I don't know, it was a high-level battle. And then he went d4, we traded like this, and I went rook g1. And now, like, we both have 27 minutes. Yes, my time advantage is gone. He played a bit faster, but I thought this was a really interesting game. You know, I have ideas to come down here, but ultimately his king is way safer than mine, right? Like queen h2 stuff, and in the long run, my h-pawn might be kind of vulnerable. But I was thinking, if I can just consolidate and trade the queens, like I'm in there with my rook, you know, it's hard for him to make a move. Ultimately, he went rook d8. He spent a long time on this move. I didn't quite understand what he was thinking about, to be honest. Like knight f6, I thought I could just take on g7. Not to mention, I thought about queen f3. And if this, b7 is hanging, g7 is hanging, the whole thing looked a bit dangerous. So he went rook d8. And, you know, I had half a thought here to just offer a trade of queens, because he's threatening stuff against my king. I was like, well, he'll go maybe queen g5. I don't know. I didn't know if I should take with the pawn or the rook. The computer likes rook. But then I was like, really? This is like all I'm getting? But I guess there is rook c7 stuff. And also, he doesn't even have to trade. He can apparently, you know, drop the queen back, or, you know, he can give me a check and then drop the queen back. Queen b5, like king f8. If queen b7, there's knight f4 check. Like it's dicey, and I didn't know how to improve my position here. So I went b4, which is a mistake. Not because of the move that he played, though. The computer is not a huge fan. Now it thinks knight f6 and give up the pawn, which again didn't really occur to me. He went here. And I went rook c5 and he went g6. And so at this point, I started realizing, oh, Josiah has this knight f4 trick. So basically, Josiah can play knight f4 check whenever he wants. Like originally, I wanted to play rook c3 here. And I realized he has knight f4, take. I would play king e3. He would go back. I can take on g7. He can take on h4. Something like this. Okay? What I would ultimately do here is I would play here, here, king e7, rook g4, and I thought this is just a draw. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to move from this position. But I didn't know what to play. So I went b4, and before I knew it, he went knight f4 check, and I was like, oh, I messed up. Because every time he was trying to go for knight f4 check, at the end of the line, g7 was a weakness. And to be honest, around here, I didn't really, like, I didn't know what to do. And yeah, there isn't much. Like, if I play king d2, now he just puts his knight on d5 and is just, like, playing for a win. Like, my king now is officially much weaker than his. And I just lost control here. I lost control of the position, and now I'm stuck defending a bad endgame. What's funny is that going into this endgame, like, with the time situation, and I actually thought it was just equal. Like, I just thought, well, this is a, easy. I play rook c8, rook d8, but no. Like, this is really bad. He takes on h4, rook h3. He's going to win at least another pawn. And actually, ultimately, he will win this one. And I thought this was really difficult to defend. Nope. Apparently not. Apparently, the computer finds it. And yeah, basically, we got here, and I was a bit rattled. Like, I thought this was just a very easy next few moves. And according to the engine, it is. But I have 3 isolated pawn islands in an endgame, which is really hard to defend. You have to get stretched real thin with the king and the rook, and I misplayed it. And I mean, I went rook c8. Another thing that I could have done here, instead of trading the rooks, I should have kept more rooks on the board. Or I at least should have chucked a pawn, just given a pawn away, and been more active like this. This would have probably been better, because now I'm actually threatening to take pawns. He would need to go here, probably king d7, and then I would play rook b8. He would need to defend against that, and then I would play rook f8, and now he either has to play passive defense or push a pawn and make some weaknesses, and I can start winning some pawns back. And this is a draw. Like, of everything in this position that I could have seen that I didn't see, playing rook c1, giving up the pawn completely, and then playing rook c7, I should have spotted that. But as you can tell from my time spend, all of a sudden I have 4 minutes and I'm like, wait, am I just like much worse in this endgame? And I trade rooks, which was bad. And somewhere here, like, Josiah could have probably started a bit slower on this side of the board, but I thought he played fine. Like, I thought he did the right thing. And now I have literally the worst. I have some split teeth, okay? Which is just terrible. I mean, 4 isolated pawns in an endgame is horrendous. And he didn't play perfectly, but practically speaking, this is a losing endgame. Like, Magnus Carlsen beats every GM in the world with black here. It's like, it's a very, very, very difficult endgame. And for the record, that is ultimately what happened. I tried, but yeah, he has a perfect setup, and b3, and he's gonna block, and he won, and he played great. I mean, really, he played very well. And you know what I mean by like still being happy even in a loss, like circumstances aside, the fact that I have half out of 4 in this tournament and had half out of 5 in the last one that I played, I don't know what has happened. Like, I really don't know. The last tournament was all sorts of like, oh, I see the move, then I don't play the move, blah, blah, blah. Like, here, this type of game, I'm okay losing. I lost to a better player. Like, he was better consistently and didn't make a single real mistake the entire game. I mean, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. It was up to me then to find in this moment this concept of saving you know, my rook and being more active and not trying to hang on to the pawn. This was wrong. This could honestly be in a book. Maybe I'll add this to my second book. I have a second book, by the way. I just leaked that. It's not out yet, but it's being written. It's going to be for intermediate players, so hopefully you put it on your wish list. But yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it was like a lapse in focus and some psychology here. Basically, was the whole reason that I lost. Like, I had a lapse. I had a feeling it was a draw. a feeling, but then it started slipping and slipping and slipping, and then I made a bad decision, and that made it a lot harder for myself. But the right thing to do would have been join the rooks together, stay active, even if it costs you a pawn. But sadly, we lose. Sadly, we lose this one, but I had a lot of fun playing this game. I felt my brain churning. I thought we had a very unique and original position, and honestly, this is why I play the Trimpowski, because I think it leads to some super imbalanced games, like super obscure opening concepts. The engine educating me that putting the knight on d3 and, like, that's really fascinating. I would have never thought that, So I learned a lot. It sucks to lose. I would love to have the same philosophy through all my losses, but it really sucks when you're also bleeding rating points the entire time. Like, I gotta beat the lower rated players. Having said that, after beating me, my previous opponent, Rose Atwell, defeated the Grandmaster in our section. So, and Ryan's son has like 3 out of 4 and is undefeated. Like, these kids are all going to be title players within a year or two. Rose and Ryan will be IMs within 1 to 2 years. So, I got to donate rating points to their fund, which sucks. But this was an interesting game, and Josiah now has 3.5 out of 4, so he'll be a GM also, probably in a couple of years. Yeah, I'm in a tough section. This is a really, really tough section, but I'm fighting, and that's all I have for you today. And I'll see you in the next recap. Get out of here.